The Illyrian Wars. In the First Illyrian War, which lasted from 229 to 45 BC to 228 BC, Rome's concern with the trade routes running across the Adriatic Sea increased after the First Punic War, when many tribes of Illyria became united under one queen, Teuta. The death of a Roman envoy named Coruncanius on the orders of Teuta and the attack on trading vessels owned by Italian merchants under Rome's protection prompted the Roman Senate to dispatch a Roman army under the command of the consuls Lucius Postumius Albinus, consul 234 and 229 BC, and Gnaeus Fulvius Centumalus. Rome expelled Illyrian garrisons at the cities of Epidamnus, Apollonia, Corcyra, Pharos, and others, and established a protectorate over these Greek towns. The Romans also set up Demetrius of Pharos as a power in Illyria to counterbalance the power of Teuta. The Second Illyrian War lasted from 220 BC to 219 BC. In 219 BC, the Roman Republic was at war with the Celts of Cisalpine Gaul, and the Second Punic War with Carthage was beginning. These distractions gave Demetrius the time he needed to build a new Illyrian war fleet. Leading this fleet of 90 ships, Demetrius sailed south of Lissus, violating his earlier treaty and starting the war. During the Third Illyrian War in 168 BC, the Illyrian king Gentius allied himself with the Macedonians. First, in 171 BC, he was allied with the Romans against the Macedonians, but in 169, he changed sides and allied himself with Perseus of Macedon. He arrested 2 Roman legati and destroyed the cities of Apollonia and Dyrrhachium, which were allied with Rome. In 168, he was defeated at Scadra by a Roman force under L. Anicius Gallus, and in 167, brought to Rome as a captive to participate in Gallus's triumph, after which he was interned in Aguvium. In the Illyrian War of 229 BC, 219 BC, and 168 BC, Rome overran the Illyrian settlements and suppressed piracy, which had made Adriatic Sea an unsafe region for Roman commerce. There were 3 Roman campaigns, the first against Teuta, the second against Demetrius of Pharos, and the third against Gentius. The first Roman campaign of 229 BC marked the first time that the Roman navy crossed the Adriatic in order to launch the invasion. Roman conquest and administration. The Roman navy's first crossing of the Adriatic Sea in 229 BC involved Rome's first invasion of Illyria, the First Illyrian War. The Roman Republic finally completed the conquest of Illyria in 168 BC by defeating the army of the Illyrian king Gentius. Shortly after, the whole Illyrian, Balkan Peninsula was incorporated into the Roman prefecture of Illyricum, where the present-day ethnic Albanian region was divided into the administrative provinces of Illyria, Macedonia, Dardania, and Epirus. Roman emperors with Illyrian origin. Distinguishing themselves as prominent warriors, the Illyrian soldiers moved up the ranks as became generals and then emperors of the Roman Empire. The Illyriciani, or Illyrian emperors, as they were otherwise known as, were a group of Roman emperors during the crisis of the 3rd century who hailed from the region of Illyricum, the modern Western Balkans, and were raised chiefly from the ranks of the Roman army, whence they are ranked among the so-called barracks emperors. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries, the Illyricum and the other Danubian provinces, Rhaetia, Pannonia, Moesia, held the largest concentration of Roman forces, 12 legions, up to a third of the total army, and were a major recruiting ground. The historical period of the Illyrian emperors proper begins with Claudius Gothicus in 268 and ends in 284 with the rise of Diocletian and the institution of the Tetrarchy. This rather short period was very important in the history of the empire, since it represents the recovery from the crisis of the 3rd century, a long period of usurpations and military difficulties. All of the Illyrian emperors were trained and able soldiers, and they recovered some of the provinces and positions lost by their predecessors, including Gaul and the eastern provinces. Men of Illyrian or Thraco-Dacian origin, however, continued to be prominent in the empire throughout the 4th century and beyond. Arrival of Christianity. Christianity first came to the area when St. Paul and some of his followers traveled in the Balkans, passing through Thracian and Greek and Albanian populated areas. He spread Christianity to the people of Beroia, Epirus, Thessaloniki, Athens, Corinth, and Dyrrhachium. Paul went through the Roman province of Macedonia, present-day Albania, into Achaia, and made ready to continue on to Syria, but he changed his plans and traveled back through Macedonia because of Jews who had made a plot against him. At this time, it is likely that Paul visited Corinth for 3 months. In Romans 15:19, Paul wrote that he visited Illyricum, but he may have meant what would now be called Illyria Graeca, which lay in the northern part of modern Albania, but was at that time a division of the Roman province of Macedonia. The Christian gospel may have also reached Albania through the Illyrian soldiers who predominated in the famous Praetorian Guard. These men were housed in their barracks called the Praetorium and were responsible for guarding the palaces of the Roman emperors and governors. These imperial guards had 2 excellent opportunities to become acquainted with the new Christian religion. First, when the Roman provincial governor Pilate turned Jesus Christ over to the soldiers for crucifixion, they led him away into the hall called Praetorium and called together the whole band. Mark 15:16. The brutal soldiery mocked, abused, and finally crucified their captive. And it was one of them who at Christ's death finally expressed what others of their number must have concluded by then. Truly, this man was the Son of God. Chapter 15:39. The arrival of Slavs. The Slavs migrated in successive waves. Small numbers might have moved down as early as the 3rd century. However, the bulk of migration did not occur until the late 6th century AD. Very little is known of their origin, but they occupied most of the Eastern Roman Empire, pushing downwards the Roman province of Illyricum towards present-day Greece. Most still remained subjects of the Roman Empire, but those that settled in the Pannonian Plain were tributary to the Avars. By the 6th century, the numbers of Illyrian people were greatly decreased by the previous barbarian incursions, which left a vacuum later to be filled by southern Slavs. This caused the remaining Illyrian tribes to either assimilate or push southward to present-day Albania. Many fled to mountainous areas or to the refuges of the cities on the Adriatic coast. When the Slavs arrived, they were the first barbarian tribes to actually settle in the area permanently. They assimilated many of the native Balkan people. However, those who ventured downward and took to the mountains of southern Illyria found refuge among their kin and retained their own cultures and language. Scholars believe that these tribes are the ancestors of the Albanian people. The Byzantine period, in 395, the Roman Empire was permanently divided, and the area that now constitutes modern Albania became part of the Byzantine Empire. Since the 1st and 2nd century, Christianity had become the established religion in most of the Eastern Roman Empire, supplanting pagan polytheism. But though the country was in the fold of Byzantium, Christians in the region remained under the jurisdiction of the Pope of Rome until 732. In that year, the iconoclast Byzantine Emperor Leo III, the Isaurian, angered by archbishops of the region because they had supported Rome in the iconoclastic controversy, detached the Church of the province from the Roman Pope and placed it under the Patriarch of Constantinople. When the Christian Church split in 1054 between the East and Rome, the region of southern Albania retained its ties to Constantinople, while the north reverted to the jurisdiction of Rome. This split marked the first significant religious fragmentation of the country. Later, in the early 9th century, the Byzantine government established the theme of Dyrrhachium, based in the city of the same name and covering most of the coast, while the interior was left under Slavic and later Bulgarian control. Full Byzantine control over modern Albania was established only after the Byzantine conquest of Bulgaria in the early 11th century. In his history written in 1079 to 1080, Byzantine historian Michael Italiates referred to the Albanoi as having taken part in a revolt against Constantinople in 1043, and to the Arbanatai as subjects of the Duke of Dyrrhachium. It is disputed, however, whether that refers to Albanians in an ethnic sense. However, a later reference to Albanians from the same Italiates regarding the participation of Albanians in a rebellion in 1078 is undisputed. At this point, they are already fully Christianized. In the late 11th and 12th centuries, the region played a crucial part in the Byzantine-Norman Wars. Dyrrhachium was the westernmost terminus of the Via Egnatia, the main overland route to Constantinople, and was one of the main targets of the Normans, cf. Battle of Dyrrhachium, 1081. Towards the end of the 12th century, as Byzantine central authority weakened and rebellions and regionalist secessionism became more common, the region of Arbanon became an autonomous principality ruled by its own hereditary princes. After the Fourth Crusade, the region came under the control of the despotate of Epirus, but its control was never firm. Serbian influence began to be strongly felt at this time, as well as those of Venice and later of the Kingdom of Sicily, as both powers tried to gain control of coastal Albania for their purposes. The new administrative system of the themes, or military provinces created by the Byzantine Empire, contributed to the eventual rise of feudalism in Albania, as peasant soldiers who served military lords became serfs on their landed estates. Among the leading families of the Albanian feudal nobility were the Thopias, Balshas, Shpatas, Musicas, Aranitis, Dukagjins, and Castriotis. The first three of these rose to become rulers of principalities that were practically independent of Byzantium. In 1258, the Sicilians took possession of the island of Corfu and the Albanian coast, from Dyrrhachium to Valona and Buthrotum, and as far inland as Berat. This foothold, reformed in 1272 as the Kingdom of Albania, was intended by the dynamic Sicilian ruler, Charles of Anjou, to become the launchpad for an overland invasion of the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines, however, managed to recover most of Albania by 1274, leaving only Valona and Dyrrhachium in Charles's hands. Finally, when Charles launched his much-delayed advance, it was stopped at the Siege of Berat in 1280 to 1281. Albania would remain largely under Byzantine control until the Byzantine Civil War of 1341 to 1347, when it fell to the hands of the Serbian ruler Stephen Dušan and became part of the Serbian Empire. Medieval period. The territory now known as Albania remained under Roman Byzantine control until the Slavs began to overrun it from 548 and onward, and was captured by Bulgarian Empire in the 9th century. After the weakening of the Byzantine Empire and the Bulgarian Empire in the middle and late 13th century, some of the territory of modern-day Albania was captured by the Serbian Principality. In general, the invaders destroyed or weakened Roman and Byzantine cultural centers in the lands that would become Albania. The territorial nucleus of the Albanian state formed in the Middle Ages as the Principality of Arber and the Kingdom of Albania. The Principality of Arber, or Albanon, Albanian, Arber or Arberia, was the first Albanian state during the Middle Ages. It was established by Archon Progon in the region of Kruja in K 1190. Progon, the founder, was succeeded by his sons Gjin and Demetrius, the latter which attained the height of the realm. After the death of Dimitar, the last of the Progon family, the principality came under Gregory Commonus, and later Golem. The principality was dissolved in 1255. Pipa and Rapishti conclude that Arbanon was the first sketch of an Albanian state, and that it retained semi-autonomous status as the western extremity of an empire under the Dukai of Epirus or the Lascarids of Nicaea. The Ottoman invasion, Ottoman supremacy in the West Balkan region began in 1385 with the Battle of Savra. On the conquered part of Albania, which territory stretched between Mat River on the north and Samaria to the south, Ottoman Empire established the Sanjak of Albania, also known as Arvanid Sankak, and in 1419 Gjirokastra became the county town of the Sanjak of Albania. Beginning in the late 14th century, the Ottomans expanded their empire from Anatolia to the Balkans, Rumelia. By the 15th century, the Ottomans ruled most of the Balkan Peninsula. Their advance in Albania was interrupted in the 15th century when George Kastrioti Skanderbeg, the Albanian national hero who had served as an Ottoman military officer, renounced Ottoman service, allied with some Albanian chiefs forming the League of Legi, and fought off successfully Turkish rule from 1443 to 1468 upon his death. Skanderbeg frustrated every attempt by the Turks to regain Albania, which they envisioned as a springboard for the invasion of Italy and Western Europe. His unequal fight against the mightiest power of the time won the esteem of Europe, as well as some support in the form of money and military aid from Naples, the papacy, Venice, and Ragusa. 3 major attacks: Siege of Cruya, 1450, Second Siege of Cruya, 1466-67, Third Siege of Cruya, 1467, suffered Albania during this period from major armies led by the great Ottoman sultans themselves, Murad II and Mehmed II the Conqueror. Albania was almost fully reoccupied by the Ottomans in 1479 after capturing Shkodër from Venice. Albania's conquest by Ottomans was completed after Durrës's capture from Venice in 1501. Albanian resistance to the Ottoman invasion. Given their skills as warriors, many Albanians had been recruited into the Janissary Corps, including the feudal heir George Kastrioti, who was renamed Skanderbeg, Iskandar Bey, by his Turkish trainers at Edirne. After some Ottoman defeats at the hands of the Hungarians, Skanderbeg deserted on November 1443 and began a rebellion against the Ottoman Empire. Thanks for watching.